Now, back to Coastal Living on KZTV.
Welcome back, everybody. As you know, we live on the coastal bend and hurricanes are a way of life. But you don't know, you may not know that back in 1919, exactly 100 years ago, because we're observing that date this weekend, was the great Corpus Christi hurricane. And then there's nothing great about it because about 400 to 600 people perished in that one storm. I mean, this is before television and radio and satellites and all that. But that storm in 1919 changed everything. I'm joined by Mr. Jim Maloney, and I'm a big fan of yours because I've watched this book and have enjoyed it for many, many years. Now, you're not a photographer. What do you do for real?
In the real life, I'm in the gas compressor business.
Okay, but you're an avid collector and historian, right?
Right.
So how did you come about these photographs from 1919?
Well, I collected postcards, and these photographs were printed on postcard backs, so they ended up in bookstores and postcard shows, antique shops, and eBay, and I have bought a bunch of them over the years.
Well, you and Murphy Givens, who's well known here in town as a historian who still writes for the Caller Times, put this book together, and we see some of the close-ups. Now, this is Corpus Christi, 1919, after the storm, which was disastrous.
That picture right there is Lichtenstein's department store, and that white thing that looks like awnings, look carefully, those are men's shirts hung out to dry after they were washed after the storm. And that pile of wood is in the middle of Chaparral Street.
Now, back then, the wharves were made of wood. There was no concrete. Right. So as the storm blew in, it destroyed all of the wharves, all the harbor stuff.
And all the houses.
And the houses,
too. The wooden houses were destroyed. This is the power company, CP&L, what became CP&L. It was right at the edge of the bay, and cotton bales off of the municipal wharf did all that damage, knocking down that building.
And I call that the cruelest joke in history, where you spend the entire season putting a couple of bales together and then the hurricane blows them away.
Yeah.
Now, there's other photographs of what used to be the city before the seawall. Because can we credit the 1919 storm for the seawall?
You can credit that in time. The seawall was built in 1940. The storm happened in 1919, and the city didn't have the money. Finally, in 1933, we had another hurricane that did not do the kind of damage this one did, but it woke them up, and they finally got busy and built that seawall, and it's 14 foot high, 2 foot higher than the water was in downtown and North Beach in 1919. It was 12 feet deep.
So our seawall is at 14 feet.
Right.
I knew that. But it was purposefully done 2 feet higher than the water that came in the 1919 storm.
Right. So if you go down and stand on Water Street and look towards the bay, you're looking uphill.
You're looking uphill. And we have Water Street because that's where the water used to come from. You get it? Water Street.
It was at the edge of the water.
That was the edge of the water. But that was a shallow bay.
It still is.
Well, it still is. So I'm thinking that the wharves used to be very far deep into the water.
They were 100, 150 feet at least, yeah.
How do you get large sailing ships into a 5-6 foot water?
We had about an 8 foot depth they could come in. So ships that had more than 8 foot of draw, they did not come here.
Okay. Now, you're having an event at the Museum of Science and History this weekend, right?
Yeah, we're actually two events. 8:30 in the morning, there's a memorial service at Rose Hill Cemetery where all the victims are buried.
And people should know that at Rose Hills, over here by Buck Stadium, there's a large rock with an inscription dedicated to the folks, because we didn't find everybody, right?
Right. Well, these are the unidentified. These are the remains of the people that were found, but they couldn't identify.
So you're having a solemn ceremony or remembrance in the morning.
And then 10 o'clock, the Corpus Christi Museum opens, and we have an exhibit of some of the photographs that you just showed, blown up to 3x2 so you can really see the details. And then 3 speakers. I'm going to speak for twice. Mary Jo O'Rear, who wrote the book on the building of the seawall and the building of the port. She's going to talk about the after effects of the storm, and Alan Holt from another television station is going to also be out there and talk about hurricanes in general. And we're going to do that twice during the day. We have some costumed actors who are going to reenact the experiences of 3 people who survived the storms and wrote their memoirs, so that you can actually with them experience what people went through. And then some kids' activities. hurricane in a bottle, and we have a hurricane machine which you can actually step inside the machine and it'll blow winds 75 miles an hour, hurricane speed.
And think about that. That was exactly 100 years ago.
Yeah, tomorrow. Tomorrow's 100th anniversary.
And here we are still dealing with hurricanes. It's something that we have to know.
And if you watch Dorian, this storm was very similar to Dorian.
In its path or its intensity?
Well, early in Dorian's path, it was forecast to come here by some of the forecasters. If you looked at some of the spaghetti models, and of course it went further east. But they didn't know the storm was here until 9 o'clock in the morning. And at noon, the water started rolling in. So 9 o'clock in the morning, the warnings went out.
And the storm surge.
Well, the first water was about 12 to 18 inches deep. And then about an hour or two later, it rose to 6 feet in 20 minutes. And then eventually got to 12 feet.
The 1919 Corpus Christi hurricane. You want to know more about it? There's his weekend, and this guy knows everything. But he wasn't there. He's not that old. Jim, good to see you again.
Thank you, McCovey.
We'll be right back with more on Coastal Living coming up after this.
You're watching Coastal Living on KZTV, the only lifestyle show made in the Coastal Bend for the Coastal Bend.
Don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.